Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about not being that great at software development. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, I am not a great developer and I fear I'll be found out and fired. What should I do? Parentheses immediately. Well, the first thing you need to figure out is where you are on the scale and not where you think you are, because that is something that is very easy to get wrong, especially if you have low self-esteem. And for the fact of the matter, it's pretty easy to get there even if you have a good self-esteem. So what I mean about you figuring out where you are on the scale is that you right now have an emotional response where you feel like you're not very good at what you do. The problem is that there is no way for anybody except for you and the people that you are working with to figure out whether or not that's the case. I have personally worked with some truly great software developers. They're extraordinarily good at what they do, but they still feel as if they're not that good. And this is true for every single role model I've had myself. I'm not joking when I say that I've worked with someone who I personally look up to as who I would like to become in the future. He is without a doubt the best software developer I've ever worked with. And he felt the need to work late hours because his typing on the keyboard wasn't really up to snuff. He felt that he was slow. Yet he had alone roughly 45% of all of the commits in the entire code base on one of the biggest projects that I've ever, like one of the world's large, one really big project, worldwide large, if that makes sense. And so you have to kind of go through the same thing here. You really need to figure out where you are on the scale. And I think that the best thing for you to ask yourself here is have you actually received any complaints on your performance? Are people unhappy with your performance? If you want to know that, there are ways to figuring that out. You can suggest to your manager to get a 360 review or something like that, where you basically ask for feedback around of the people who are around you, and then depending on what that feedback is, you act accordingly. Because at the end of the day, that is the best thing for you. So if you really want to figure out if you're going to get fired or not, you really should figure out if the way that you are doing work is in alignment with what everybody expects you to do. Because that's the thing. In this specific company that you're working in, they have a certain way of doing things. And it is very important that you understand how those things are done so that you can contribute in a way that is appreciated by the people that you are working with. I've worked with many software developers who have a different type of problem to the one that you have, but still in the same sort of area where they start working in a company and then they decide after, like, in the worst case scenario, it's been like the same day they start, that everything that is being done in the company is wrong or something like that, and they have all these ideas, and the ideas are great, but they don't take the time to actually understand how the work is being done. They don't take the time to understand that it's not like the things that are not so nice because they can't be better. It's more because there are circumstances that created the situation. And so they actually cause friction and problems, and in some cases we've had to discipline them because they are unwilling to accept the situation that they are working in. And that is a different type of misalignment. Now you think that you are producing poorly, and as I said, the only way for you to really know that is to figure out whether or not you're able to meet the requirements in this company. And comes if the worst thing happens, and let's say for the sake of argument that you get fired, well, there's nothing stating that that's going to happen in the next company, because it's the same. It's going to be the same song and dance over again. You don't you think that every company is identical, but they're not. Every company does things slightly different. There are many things that overlap, of course, but the expectations on what you're supposed to be doing is different from every company. I can tell you a personal story where I transitioned from my first job was in a very small startup where I had come from like directly out of the university, and I was deeply underqualified to deal with that situation. Then I moved into a very, very large company with a lot of process and a lot of bells and whistles and so forth, and a lot of time to do things well and so forth. And then I moved into another startup. And the adjustment for me, like I did fairly well in the large company, but when I started in the next startup, it was really tricky for me to just keep my head above water because in the way that they were working was extremely ad hoc. They had an almost it was nigh on chaos. We had like not even the you can we did not even have the most basic of work processes, and you kind of just had to learn as you were going along to figure out how to deal with this situation. And I finally managed to figure out, okay, this is the way I have to do things. And that's why I tell you, it's feedback in this scenario is very important. So I really urge you to try to do a 360 or something similar if at all possible. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you are afraid of that you're a bad developer or that you're going to get fired, you have to realize that it this might of course be the case, but it's very likely that you are causing yourself unnecessary anxiety because it's very natural for a lot of software developers to feel anxious about their performance because there is pressure in this profession. There is always going to be pressure because at the end of the day, it's really like everything you do comes down to how how high your skills are, how smart you are, how well you can solve problems in a quick and efficient fashion, and so forth. And this is like every single day. But if you want to have a more accurate estimation of where you are in comparison to everybody else and whether or not you're in like a risk zone or something, you have to measure it by the amount of complaints or praise or whatever you're getting and do a 360 or something similar. Ask your like just ask for a 360 of your coworkers and see what they actually feel about you. Now, if the worst thing comes to pass and you do get fired, you have to understand that you can only do as well as you can. Identify the things that you are not so good with, try to work on those things and continuously improve, and realize that just because you're not right for one company, that does not mean that you're not right for the next company. And trust me when I say this, I've gone through this myself, and I have many coworkers who's gone through the same thing. And at the end of the day, I promise you, even if the first two, three, four, five companies are not right for you, that doesn't mean that number seven isn't the place where you find somewhere where you actually fit in. Because remember, every time you make a mistake and every time you feel this way, you've actually improved. Because as long as you continue improving, at some point you're gonna get it right. I promise you. Have a great day.